Okay, so don't forget that in terms of the referencing in the whole pipeline, just let's have a look at where the geo and where the bind scale fit in and where the rig skeleton fits in. Okay, so just as a recap, we've got a geo folder, and excuse the drawing, but ultimately this is our geometry. Okay. Over the series of videos, we've been creating a skeleton, and this we call the bind folder. You can call it skin. I mean anything that is meaningful to how you remember the process. And we referenced in the geo. Okay, so that was getting referenced in. So literally we built the bind skeleton. Okay. And because we reference in the geo, obviously the geo kind of sits nicely in this folder and in the file, sorry, and we reference the geo in so that we could have the geometry there and build the skeleton to the right proportions and build the skeleton so that the joints are in the right placement for the geo. Okay, now based on the reference videos and what we just did there is we now can, once the skeleton's finished, we can save that skeleton and save it into the rig folder, and that's what we just did. And this is just the exact same skeleton. Once we've finished the bind skeleton, we save the skeleton alone in the rig folder, because ultimately when we reference the bind file in, that bind file has the geo referenced in. So ultimately when we do reference the bind in, the geometry will come with it. Okay, and also what we'll get is, because we're referencing in the bind file, that bind file also has that skeleton that we set up, so that will be exactly the same as the rig. So we actually will get a duplicate of the skeleton. Okay, and this is the setup that I like to do, basically because it makes it nice and easy to get into Game Engine as well, and we can jettison the rig once we've done the animations. Okay. Now, with the rig skeleton, we can. That's where we set up all the controls and all the IK and FK, and often you've got IK FK arm switching, which under the hood has got 3 joint chains. So the reason I have a separate rig skeleton is that you can do what the hell you want with the rig skeleton, and once the rig is finished, you, through a series of parent constraints, we parent constrain the bind skeleton to the rig skeleton. So the rig skeleton will be ultimately driving the bind. Okay. And so when we are actually doing the animations, we can bake the animations down onto the bind skeleton, and so ultimately, not much better. It's just the geo and the bind skeleton which will be exported to game. We can absolutely get rid of the rig. So what we send through is a nice, clean single skeleton and geometry into the game engine. So the rig is just there. We can set it up however we want to. Ultimately, the rig will be driving the bind skeleton. Okay, and that's just through parent constraints. So that's just a reminder of the referencing process. Once we finish the bind, we then save the skeleton out on its own, save that into the rig, knowing that once we reference the bind in, we get all the geometry and the extra skeleton with it. Okay.